direct to the heart, direct to the world. Hello everyone, welcome to bilingual TV program Telling China's Story. I'm Liu Fang from Shenzhen, China. For a long time, eradicating poverty has been a challenge facing the international community. Although poverty is often measured by incomes, in reality, people living in extreme poverty suffered from not just extremely low incomes, but also a serious lack of basic needs, including food, safe drinking water, health, shelter, and education. China, as the largest developing country in the world, is an advocate and contributor to the global poverty alleviation cause. After decades of efforts, China announced at the end of 2020 that it had eliminated extreme poverty and lifting 98.99 million rural poor people out of hardship. In 2021, China introduced rural revitalization strategy to reinforce the achievements of the poverty alleviation. Likewise, Malaysia is also determined to eradicate poverty. We learned that the 12th Malaysian Plan had identified poverty reduction as one of its main focuses. Since taking office, Datuk Seri Anwar, Prime Minister of Malaysia, has stated that poverty reduction is one of his key missions. So how can we share and discuss the experiences of China in poverty alleviation and rural revitalization with other developing countries? Today, we are honored to have two guests here. They are Mr. Sha Lu, a senior researcher from the Chongyang Institute for Financial Study at Renmin University of China. Dr. Mark from Malaysia. So next, let's welcome Mr. Sha to share his observation about this topic.
It's nice to be here, share with you some of my personal feeling and some of the stories of the poverty alleviation in China. Actually, when we talk about poverty alleviation in China, it was or it has been a very huge kind of achievement and fruit in recent years. Within the 4 decades, actually China or the Chinese government has made a great contribution or great achievement in terms of lifting those people out of absolute poverty and make them, feel better, live better, and give them more energy and more resources to develop on their own. Here I would like to share with you some of Chinese people's story in terms of poverty reduction and rural revitalization. First story was about one kind of a college student who graduated from Zhejiang University, Mr. Jia Wei. Well, Jia Wei was born in Zhejiang and kind of remote rural areas, and he was born in Bainiucun, White Ox. And Bainiucun was famous for its tea production, the white tea. And actually, Jia Wei's father still is one of the producer farmers of this white tea. Elder Jia wanted Mr. Jia Wei to continue this kind of a career, to follow the older generation's kind of development. But Jia Wei didn't like to do this kind of thing. So when he entered the Zhejiang University, he chose the major as international relations because he actually wanted to explore more in a bigger city and the other kind of career. He did not want to get back to the hometown to further growing the tea, producing the tea, manufacturing the tea, and even selling the tea. Why? Because back then it was kind of difficult for those kind of tea producer, tea farmers to, well, it is not difficult to produce, it is not difficult to grow, but what was difficult was to sell, the tea to the outside region and let other people know there was a very great tea. When he graduated, his father told Mr. Jia Wei that, well, our hometown has encountered a very great change due to some kind of poverty alleviation policy and the rural revitalization policy. Nowadays, we could use this e-commerce and other kind of technology-assisted channel to further, advertising our tea to let the outside world, not even the region China, but also the outside world, the rest of the world to know that China has a very, very good tea, white tea, tea production in our region. Then, Mr. Jia Wei, when he graduated from the university, he just decided to get back to his hometown in this kind of Banyuchun and to help his father, not necessarily help his father to continue producing the tea, but also creating his own brand in terms of a very good, let's say, a very famous brand. And then his father and his own family got benefit from this, further development. That is the first story about the poverty alleviation reduction. My hometown, back then, almost 20 years ago when I entered the college, back then the infrastructure, the rural railway was not in the developed region. And in that sense, most of the regions around my hometown, if they really wanted to, sell their product, want to further develop, and even want to kind of enjoy a modern life, it is difficult for them because the infrastructure, the railway back then was not that developed as we have now. Let me share with you my personal experience when I first entered college. Almost 20 years ago, in the year 2002, when I first entered Renda, it took me more than 17 hours, 16 to 17 hours to take the Chinese traditional train with green color of this kind, as the low-speed train, not high-speed, low-speed railway. Okay. When I graduated from the college, the speed got accelerated, but still, it take me more than 15 hours to travel from Beijing back to my hometown and from my hometown back to Beijing. But after I graduated from the University of Hong Kong as a doctor, when I get back to the university and when I try to travel back home in the mid-autumn vacation, back then it was the first time I took the high-speed railway traveling from Beijing back to my hometown, and it took me less than 6 hours just from Beijing to my hometown. And that's the contribution, that's the result of the technology and high-speed railway, and also that's the a contribution of the infrastructure. And with this infrastructure, all these people, living around my hometown and in those remote areas could join this kind of, let's say, transportation, and could use this infrastructure to sell their product to the outside world and even communicate with other people. That is my own story. We may argue that for the first point, the poverty alleviation or the poverty kind of reduction is much more about, providing infrastructure, providing abundant infrastructure. And the second point about the poverty alleviation is the certain people or certain talented people's role played in this process. Well, we could argue that without these people, without these talented people, this image or this kind of contribution, this improvement could not be achieved in a very easy way. So much for today's speak. Thank you very much.
Good morning everyone, I'm Dr. Mark. So today I'm just going to share a bit about the poverty alleviations. I think just now we got a student who talked about how many percentage of the poverty they are available in Malaysia. Just for your some information, actually according to the World Bank, that's the extreme poverty, it should be earnings like $1.25, it's around 5 ringgit or 7 ringgit in Malaysia. Very good thing is Malaysia has no extreme poverty because everyone is earning for that. For example, I actually born in Kedah, Sungai Petani, Kedah. I was actually grew up in the paddy field. So I was quite as one of the poorest state in Malaysia, as everyone knows. Kedah is famous for paddy field, doesn't have much of the manufacturing. So being born in a Kedah is actually something that's very different comparing to staying in Kuala Lumpur. Like just I said, lower than 7,000 per month for household income, you are considered as a B40. But if you earn like 7,000 in Kedah, you are considered as a T20. You are the top 20 richest people in the Kedah itself. And having said that, with the high inflations, we are actually facing quite a lot of issues. As a poor people, they are actually being affected by the food inflation itself. Like last year, if you buy one bowl of the curry noodle back in 2020, maybe it's charging you 8 ringgit. But if after 4 years, 2024, if you go to any shops to buy one bowl of the curry noodle, it may be actually charging you 12 ringgit. There's actually 4 ringgit increasing, is right, around 20 to 40% of the increments. So with the food inflation, it's actually affecting more on the poor people rather than the rich people. So poverty alleviation is just something that Malaysia is always trying to target, and also with the e-commerce, our government recently has implemented quite a lot of subsidies and a lot of the policy to help to boost up the e-commerce industry in order to what? In order to help those people who are in the poor regions to have reached the same economy of skill as well. So this is how Malaysia is doing in terms of the poverty alleviations. But in terms of the policies, Malaysia is seriously lack of a very strong targeted subsidies policies. We are giving a true general policy. If you have read some of the news, and especially like the age, they have been keep on mentioning about this and pushing the government to have a more targeted policy to help those people in the poorer stage in the poor area. So poverty alleviation is really the next big thing for the country, and we believe that we have a lot to learn from the other country, especially like China. They have been quite fast in terms of the GDP growth and also in terms of the poverty alleviation as well. So thank you.
Do you know of any ways to help people in poor area?
据我的了解，我觉得就是可能可以捐赠他们一些基本的食物啊、衣服、水源，然后教他们如何去换取生活。比如说一些乡村或者是一些土著，他们可以通过去自制一些编织一些手工的作品，然后去通过售卖这些产品，然后来获取一些基本的食物、水。我们可以去教他们如何去把这种生产手段去发扬光大，然后让每个人甚至小孩、老人都可以用这些方法去换取自己的基本需求，就是不只是一直去给予，而是可以教他们如何去换取。
If you had the chance, would you start a business in poor area of Malaysia?
会。因为还没开发过的地方都有机会，就是可以借凭很多中国的经验啊，乡村的地方全部都是可以再开发的，待开发的一个宝地。
好，谢谢大家的参与。And Mr. Shah also visited some villages in Malaysia with our team. So did the field trip give you a more direct understanding of Malaysia's poverty alleviation situation?
We went to Balipuntan. Okay, we visited one, let's say, a female, one lady's house, and she was the very first one to use the drone to do the weeding, because traditional way to do the weeding is by manual work. You just go to the field. You just go to the real field to weeding, to do this kind of weeding work, and it was very kind of difficult, and it was taking a long time, and it was low efficiently, less efficient. However, by using this new technology, this drone, well, this young lady, she was very good at using this drone, and she also kind of teaches her sister, actually not only her sister but also her younger brother and also her father, help them together within this village. Not only her village but also the recent village, well, their group, their family was helping those people to accelerate the way of weeding, to除草, all this kind of thing, and it is due to the new technology. It is due to the use of the drone, and their family, the material benefit of their family actually got significantly improved. Actually, her house or her living kind of situation was very good. She was also using the most updated version of the iPhone. She said that due to this kind of drone and the benefit, I could afford this kind of thing. I said that was very good, and that was a very typical case of, let's say, rural revitalization and further development due to the new technology.
Dr. Mark, how do you think making the achievement of poverty alleviation more sustainable by improving skills and changing mindsets?
It's true as well. Actually, in the behavioral economies, we have this saying that the mindsets of the people are the most difficult to the change as well. Because if you are always having the mindset and concepts that you are living at a certain situations, let's say that if you are earning like 3,000, which is actually very near to the poor income level for one household. So if you are earning like 3,000 per month, If suddenly that you are earning like 30,000, the perceptions and also the way of spending money is very hard to be changed as well. You need to have a lot of time to adapt and telling yourself that you are not earning the 3,000, you are earning the 30,000, you can actually afford some of the luxury items. But for people to change the mindset is very difficult. It's not so easy, but I think it's a phase that everyone should have changed. Not only changing in terms of the income as well, the mindset of the people changing. Because in Malaysia, I think people say this, that some people they are get too comfort at their certain situation. Especially if you go to the rural areas, some of the shops they can like open 2-3 days and then they close for a week, open a few days and then close for a week, because for them they earn sufficient income will be able to sustain for themselves. They don't need to earn a lot much, they don't need to earn extra to fulfill their lives. So actually that mindset is actually part of the reason they're causing the poverty as well.
In fact, whether in China or in Malaysia, there are many new concepts have already been applied in the process of poverty alleviation. For example, in the villages I visited, a young businessman have brought e-commerce to the countryside, and people living there have learned how to shop online and sell their products on e-commerce platforms. And local unemployed women have also earned extra income by making handmade products. They very cleverly integrate CSR into the e-commerce model, allowing larger companies to participate in this kind of poverty alleviation. So what unique role can young people play in poverty alleviation in the future?
In my opinion, young people is always full of energy. Young people, younger generation is always kind of open to the newly innovative technology, right? For me, I still could be identified as younger generation, as you guys. So I actually try to teach myself a lot of new things. As I come here in Malaysia, I never learned about the Malay, the Bahasa Melayu. I never learned about this kind of thing. But recently, I just learned a few kind of words and a few expressions, like, saya makan, something like that. It means I eat something. And also things like, so I'm this kind of person welcoming new things, new knowledge, and a new way of thinking. I think people younger than me will definitely, welcome all these kind of technology. So that is the, the benefit of younger generation to work in countryside. They could always open to new technology, and they learn very fast. They could apply the new technology in the real situation in a very fast and very efficient way, so that the local or this situation could be improved in a very soon or in a very kind of fast way. That's my understanding about younger generation's contribution to the poverty alleviation.
I think the young people nowadays they are quite the good generations. They are born in the generations with the high advanced technology. They are born in generations with the internet. Well, my generation doesn't have internet at all. So in terms of the bridging of the internet, e-commerce with the young people, yes, young people actually has given a lot of the great opportunity to the e-commerce as well. I think we believe that we will learn from China. China is a very strong fundamental and also strong history in the e-commerce. So we only started to adapt and then started to make it more reasonable and more achievable to be accepted by everyone during the pandemic by force. But young people, they do not have to force themselves, they already can adapt to the new technology. So for those people who are especially staying in the rural area, who are staying in the stage that are not so developed, e-commerce is really giving a very, very good opportunity to reach out to the other states, not only in Malaysia, but also reach out to the world as well. Just to share some experience, I actually own a few companies, and one of my company was actually producing some sport equipment. We open the e-commerce and then we sell to UK, we sell to the Europe country. So it's also giving an opportunity for all people in the Malaysia go through the e-commerce to reach out to the rest of the world as well.
Okay, last question. Can we talk about the basic and advantages of cooperation between China and Malaysia in the field of poverty alleviation? And what are the prospects of the cooperation between two countries in the field of poverty alleviation?
Thank you very much for this question. And for the basics, both China and Malaysia should face the should kind of tackle the problem of transformation from a developing stage to a further developed stage. And during this transforming period, they should focus more on both the infrastructure, but both the infrastructure and the introduction of new technology. That's the first basic. And the further in the future of the cooperation, in my opinion, first of all, that's the younger generations communication, younger generations exchange with each other is important. And then in terms of agriculture, in terms of this rural revitalization, just you mentioned the e-commerce, the Taobao village, this kind of thing, could also be a channel in the future that Malaysia and China can cooperate with each other in poverty alleviation.
I think the cooperations between the Chinas and Malaysians, we are actually quite strong, especially in the recent years. We have first time have China's main exports exceeding the US. Right now it's over 120 billion US dollar. Malaysia export to China. Comparing to China's side, it's not much, but in Malaysia, China is the number one of our export country, and US has actually lowered down to number 2. And because due to the geopolitical issues, and China is very close to Malaysia, and we are trying not to rely only on the US economy. We are also trying to have a balance, to have a more cooperation with China as well. So in terms of the industry and also in terms of the business cooperations, there are actually quite a lot of the business that we are actually collaborating. Like for example, the Huawei 5G, we are actually adopting the 5G technology from Huawei itself, because I think 5G Huawei is actually the leading of the technology, and we are not only in terms of the technology, in terms of the investment also, we actually give quite a lot of subsidy specifically to the China investor, because we see the potential, and also we see how the Chinese company, they can grow in Malaysia, and how we can collaborate together. Especially like recently we have a new EV car, electrical vehicles. We are giving more permit and more license to the China enterprise as well, for them to come into Malaysia to build their EV car in Malaysia as well. We are actually inviting more and more different brands that come into Malaysia, because we are actually very welcome of the China investor, and also welcome all these businesses who can bring the collaboration to make the belief and the belief of the countries are actually stronger between two countries.
One more example, it is the EWTP, promoted by Chinese government. EWTP is the Electrical World Training Program platform, and that is basically or particularly focusing on e-commerce, the training of e-commerce, not only for Chinese but also for people from developing countries like Malaysia, like the Philippines, like from people from Vietnam and also Mexico. So you could go on the internet, check the EWTP. This is a very good program in the Belt and Road Initiative.
I think one way that how we place China as a very important partner is that every time we have a new prime minister, rather than the surrounding countries, the first country we used to visit was actually US, and just a few years ago we started to visit China as the first country other than the surrounding country, because as the main partner of the Malaysia in terms of the government collaboration and also in terms of private sector. So I think that also shows that how Malaysia is placing China as a very great partners to collaborate together, and in terms of the poverty alleviation, how we can actually move forward and actually have a more deeper understanding, and actually in terms of the economy as well, and how we can actually strengthen the competitive advantages.
My name is Li Hong. I have a question to ask. Most of the poverty alleviation projects are in short term. So how can we ensure this project based on new idea and concept can be sustained over time to bring about real long-term change?
It's true that especially when it comes to poverty alleviations, especially in these few years, due to the frequently change of the governments, we have been keep on changing the policy and again. It's true that a lot of the plans that are actually focusing on the short terms, because whenever there are new governments and new prime minister, they have a different thoughts on this one. That the Malaysian government is keep on, like they can actually work on that, but due to the some difficulty in terms of the factors, a lot of things to consider.
First of all, let's get back to the real origins of poverty. Okay. Well, one of the most important, or one of the prominent economists in 20th century, Amartya Sen, okay, and also Nobel Prize winner Amartya Sen, he wrote an important book entitled "Development as Freedom." Right, development as a freedom. So he argued that poverty was not only caused by lack of material things. Poverty was not only about lacking of infrastructure, lacking of clean water, lacking of big house and other kind of transportation. It was not only about that. Of course. Well, poverty is about one people or one generation of people's mindset. One generation of people's, let's say, way of thinking, way of observing, way of understanding our current situation, way of looking forward to our future. So we could argue like this: because poverty, the reason or the causes of poverty is a long-term kind of process, then the reduction of poverty or the alleviation of poverty is definitely could not be a short-term way, right? To solve the problem of poverty, we should look the long-term. We should look kind of far away from this kind of situation. So that's the first perspective or the first understanding. The second perspective understanding about to address your question, I would like to introduce one important Chinese old saying. It goes like in Chinese. It goes like 授人以鱼不如授人以渔. Well, the 鱼, same pronunciation, but two different words. The first 鱼 is the real fish. The second 鱼 is the way of fishing. So in English, it translates literally as we should give people, or we should teach people how to fish rather than simply giving them the fish. Okay, so it's a long-term sustainable way of alleviating poverty or reducing poverty rather than, like you don't have water, I give you water. You don't have food, I give you food. You don't have salt, I give you salt. You don't have transportation, I give you transportation. That's my take on this kind of thing. Thank you very much. Yeah.